Boom! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. I'm your host, Alan Sakian. Very pumped to be talking about how to get ahead, career and professional development. Expert is joining us today, Zak Slayback. Hello.
Alan, thanks for having me.
Very pumped to have you on the show. We have so much to talk about regarding social capital, regarding knowing how to get to people tomorrow with these communications and advance our careers. For those that don't know, Zak's background is epic. He's a career expert, writer, and venture capital professional. He's the author of How to Get Ahead, coming soon from McGraw-Hill. And he writes at zakslayback.com, that link's in the bio, about how to succeed in your career as an ambitious young professional. He's also principal at 1517 Fund, a venture capital firm backed by Peter Thiel, investing in startups led by college-aged founders. And you can download his 12 done-for-you email scripts to help you confidently reach any busy person tomorrow. And that link is below. And those are very powerful. They're very succinct. They get to the point. They have this really strong, genuine, sincere aspect to them, which I love so much. And that's one of the reasons why we've been able to amass the social capital that we've have on the show as well. So, Zak, let's talk on the big picture about the state of humanity. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, it's interesting that you asked me this question today, because I remember tweeting out this morning, seeing the video of the Falcon Heavy boosters landing the second time, and thinking to myself, okay, this is the second time it's happened. The first time was a big deal and like gave me goosebumps when I watched it. It was amazing. But the second time, it's not really a big deal. And we're going to get to the point quickly where watching rocket boosters land upright, which is weird, right? Like that should freak people out that's happening. It's just going to become anodyne, and it's going to become ho-hum, and it's just something that we see all the time. So I think it's really easy to get pessimistic about the state of humanity, to look at everything that's wrong and want to go out and fix it. But I am actually pretty optimistic. We've made probably more significant leaps in the last couple of years than the last 2 decades. And I'm pretty optimistic about the future. I'm glad to be alive today.
Yeah, likewise. The re-baselining ourselves to reusable rocket boosters is very interesting.
Just reducing the cost of getting a kilogram of anything into space that much is so important to actually being able to do anything in space. Yeah. So the reusable rocket boosters are really, really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful time to be alive. It's also one of the most complex times to be alive. 8 billion humans, exponential technology, solving some of these pressing challenges. What about your thoughts on the population size as well as the exponential technologies?
Yeah, I think that's one of these things that it's consistently throughout history problematic, because we don't know what the next thing is going to do, what the next crisis is going to look like, what the next technology will provide for us. But this kind of sounds like indefinite optimism, the idea from 0 to 1, if you're familiar with it. And I'm not a fan of indefinite optimism, but I'm pretty confident in our ability to solve these problems going forward, right? No, I think that for the most part, national politics is a bit of a distraction, but you saw recently a lot of people making fun of a certain congressperson for saying that we need new technologies that haven't been invented yet to solve problems like climate change, right? And like, the statement wasn't made in the most eloquent way, but the point that congressperson was trying to get at is one that we're actually very, very good at finding solutions to pressing problems, right? I remember being asked a question way back when I was actually in high school at an economics seminar that I was attending, because I was a weird high school student who attended economics seminars. And the question was, when will we run out of the last barrel of oil, right? And it's a trick question, because the answer is never, right? The last barrel of oil will become exponentially more expensive. And when it gets to that point that it's ridiculously, insanely expensive, that incentivizes entrepreneurs to enter the market and solve the energy problem, right?
It's this classic supply and demand. Supply drops down to extremely low left of oil.
And if demand stays consistent, quantity demanded stays consistent, then the price is just going to go up. But then that also means the incentive for finding a solution goes up.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And that's when our energy consumption continues to increase, and our ability to take something like a nuclear fusion, solar energy, things that have close to as zero in net environmental effect versus a negative environmental effect, maybe even a positive some environmental effect, carbon sequestration, things like that are very exciting. I agree with you. Millennials and Gen Z and even younger will be tackling lots of these pressing challenges. There's a very strong optimism with that. Zach, I want to know about this journey. I loved learning about your work at Praxis leading up to, it was University of Penn, and then I was University of Minnesota, and then we both, did you drop out after sophomore year?
I went on leave after sophomore year, and according to the university, I'm just on indefinite leave.
Yeah, that's the same thing with me, actually. Yeah. And then, you going to Praxis, you were identifying really powerful young entrepreneurs and linking them up with really powerful high-tech startups, and then training their skill sets in business development. That was 3.5 years of your work there, and then that led you to this, the 1517 fund, the How to Get Ahead. So yeah, tell us about this journey up until now.
Yeah, I was fortunate through this high school economics seminar I actually mentioned earlier to meet somebody who became a mentor to me, and I stayed in touch with this person. He went off and eventually founded Praxis, Isaac Morehouse, and I joined him while he was building that up, became the director of business development, and that was a whirlwind experience because for what that company does, it takes this entrepreneurial young talent, places it at a startup, trains it in like business skills like marketing, business development, and sales. My role was a lot of career coaching, sales and business development, and recruiting all at the same time. I learned a lot very quickly. I largely learned that the vast majority of what young people are taught about their careers by guidance counselors or career experts that are writing books that are just republished every single year with minimal updates is wrong. A lot of what's being taught to people about how to get started in their careers and how to make the transition to the next step of their careers is just wrong. It's largely coming from people who haven't had to find a job since before the Great Recession, many of whom haven't had to find a job since before the internet was invented, which is pretty scary when you start thinking about it. And it ends up hurting people who are ambitious, trying to get ahead, trying to start out their careers, and they're turning to the resources that they've trusted thus far through the school system, and they're coming up short. So after a couple of years doing that, 3.5 years, I eventually started writing more seriously about succeeding in your career, and then more recently joined the team over at 1517 Fund, where we're more supporting the founder side of things, but a good chunk of my time is spent on helping our portfolio companies identify and recruit really outstanding talent.
Yeah, and there's this very, very fascinating way of perceiving young people where they're, rather than thinking about them potentially getting crushed by the collegiate / political, economic, social machinery, there's this other aspect of it, which is they can do the self-learning via YouTube, Khan Academies, all these types of things. All of a sudden, you're getting these synthetic biology experts, or you're getting these young artificial intelligence experts, brain-computer interface kids that are 16 already starting to tweak with it. So this is the type of stuff that startups love. They love these young kids that are self-motivated learners that haven't been crushed by the economic machinery yet of needing to fit inside of a square hole as a circle, that type of thing. So this has also been one of the things that you're writing about with How to Get Ahead. So I want you to teach us. We have these assets as well. This is the cover of the book, and one of the things, a proven 6-step system to unleash your personal brand and build a world-class network so opportunities come to you. And let's talk about this opportunity machine. We'll talk about, this is the opportunity machine, one of the central theses of the book.
It's the central concept of the book. The book is broken down into 6 chapters, each of which is represented as a step inside what I call the opportunity machine. And I call it that because I think you can think of your career like a system. You can think of your career like a machine. If you set it up and you do the maintenance, it works, right? And each step of that opportunity machine is something that you can do time and time again, no matter where you are in your career.
Let's pull that one up. It's the next one, Ronnie. And then you can start with the top with focus and then run us through them.
Yeah, I start with focus, which really means how do you set effective, meaningful goals, right? I think particularly for ambitious, smart young people who always got like good grades when they were in school, they've never actually learned how to set goals outside of school, right? And most goal setting exercises that you find in a lot of self-help books in particular are terrible. They're things just like identify everything you want. It's like, that's not helpful. What people need to really feel motivated at work, in their careers, is to see themselves progressing towards the achievement of meaningful goals.
Yes, sir.
Every word in that sentence is important.
Yes, it is.
And after you focus on where do you want to bring yourself, what's the next step of your career, what do you want to see yourself doing, I like to think in terms of 1 to 3 years. Any further off is kind of hard to identify. Anything sooner is too soon to be really ambitious. Then you have to humble yourself and learn from people who know more than you.
That's right.
This is the unique advantage that people have when they're starting their careers and when they're making a transition to a new stage of their career. Because when you're starting something new in your career, your time isn't worth anything. It's like, this is why people tell interns to go get coffee, right? A good internship, hopefully you're not actually just getting coffee,
Totally.
but you don't really have that much in terms of skills, you don't really have that much in terms of knowledge, so you have to learn from people who know more than you. I identify 3 types of people. I call them teachers / coaches, consultants, mentors, these are the people you work directly with, and advisors. These are people you might meet once, twice, maybe a couple times a year, and you ask them specific questions to try to learn specific kinds of knowledge from them. Then you actually want to go out and you want to create evidence of what you can do, right?
Yeah.
Evidence of what you've learned, evidence of your newfound skills.
Yeah.
So that's execution. And then, once you've done that, you want to signal. So going back to an interesting point you made about there's all this knowledge out there, there's all these ways to access knowledge out there, Khan Academy, Coursera, YouTube, all these different MOOCs, all these different programs. But at the end of the day, if you go to a college campus and you ask, and I've done this is a fun experiment to do. This is something I learned from Isaac. Go to a college campus and in a room of 100 students, ask them this question. How many of you would choose to be here if you were paying the money you're paying, learning what you're learning, getting to do what you're doing, but you don't get a credential at the end of the day? In a room of 100 students, and I've done this on maybe a dozen campuses now, in a room of 100 students, 2 may raise their hands, to which I tell them, great, you should be a professor, because this is an apprenticeship system for professors.
Pretty much, yeah.
Everyone else there is trying to buy a credential which signals something about them into the world, but it's a pretty weak signal. So this is why a personal brand actually plays an important part in the book.
Yes.
At first bristled at that phrase, personal brand, because it invokes the wrong images. Invokes images of someone standing in front of their rented Ferrari in their garage, right, on YouTube. But really your personal brand is your distilled reputation.
Yeah.
Like the fact that somebody was able to refer me to you, for example, is my personal brand working for me.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I talk about a couple different ways you can craft this brand, how you can get the right people to identify with your brand, how you can actually build tools to allow you to identify and keep those people's contacts. Then you actually want to actively go out and do the business development side of it, which is connecting. This is networking, right? Yeah. And networking isn't going to networking events. I hate networking events. Most networking events, if you go to them, you just run into people who are at the same stage in their career as you, and we can talk about that in a little bit. And then you actually have to pitch yourself for new opportunities, which get you to the stage that you can start all over again and get to the next stage in your career.
And then the cycle happens again when you level up, and then you keep going and level up again and keep going. So let's break this down one more time with some added commentary. So I love the idea of having a goal. This is over and over again being preached, that you have to have some sort of a meaningful drive that you have in your life. And then that's with this 1 to 3 year time frame that you speak of. Like, where do you want to see yourself? What do you want to be doing that will maximize you waking up every morning and loving what you do? And then you have this process of you're identifying people, and you said teachers, mentors, and advisors, and you're identifying people that are smarter than you. So you have to have this hefty dose of humility.
Yep.
And
the original title of this chapter was "Be Humble."
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I was gonna ask you where the humility is. That's perfect. So when you add in this hefty dose of humility, say, I know nothing, I'm ready to learn from people that are smarter than me, then you have the guide, which we'll get to, about how to get meetings with people like that, how to learn from them optimally. And then then when you're starting, you kind of made this really powerful example of Signal when you said that when you're getting a credential from a university as a Signal, people are going way beyond credentials at universities. They're doing things like testing your coding abilities, testing your designing abilities.
Because the credential from the university is not a very good signal. It's a signal, and it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So you need to have some more than nothing, right? It's a very blunt signal.
It's a blunt signal, and sharp signals come from you having achieved things. Do you have your own website? These are very simple things. Do you have your own website? Do you have assets on your website that show that you're a good developer, that you're a good designer, that you're a good interviewer, that you have the skills that you're trying to get from the job, from the profession that you're getting to? And then I love the process of this closing through on a full circle. You see so many people aiming to find other people. When you think of things as a topology, and you think of things as based on clout, and then you see who at the top of the topology are the people you want to surround yourself with. They're not going to networking events.
Yep.
You have to find other ways to get introduced to them and maximize your potential that way and close the loop. I love this opportunity machine. And then in terms of opportunity cost and time, let's go ahead and go to that next asset. Yes.
Yeah, so whenever you're in a new stage of your career, it doesn't matter what age you are. There is somebody else who is more experienced than you at that stage, right? So this is an image I actually have in the conclusion to the book, where I say, this book is something that, yes, you can apply at the beginning of your career, but you can really apply at any stage of your career. Unless you really are the best person in the world at what you do, which there's maybe like a few hundred of those people, period, you can reframe your opportunity cost in terms of what is the new set of skills I need to learn, right? So yeah, you might be at point C, where you are much more experienced than people at points A and B, and your time is much more valuable than theirs at what you do. But if you want to get to point D, you need to figure out what's the difference in time, what's the difference in value. The best mentorships are not gotten through going to mentoring events. The best mentorships are gotten by finding very busy people and figuring out what is it that I can take off their plates that I will learn from doing, but isn't worth their time. That's the difference here, right? And I think it's important to clarify with that even that there's two types of work that they're too busy to do. There's almost perfunctory work, which this is the work that like an assistant should do. And good assistants want to be good assistants, and they're paid well for doing that. So I'm not degrading that kind of work. But then there's work that more of a mentee should do. This is the skilled work that can be delegated to a mentee.
Yeah.
You need to identify that work. And you don't just go to someone and tell them, let me be your mentee, right? Yeah. Most people that will kind of freak out. You want to go to them and you want to say, here are 4 things that I think I can do that I think you need done. Can I do them? And even if you're wrong with these 4 things, right? The fact that you went out of your way to identify them and conscientiously put together some kind of plan to help that person will at least get that person to talk to you seriously about it.
Yeah. That's really good. An example for those that are listening or viewing right now could be something like, for a show like Simulation, one could think of it as someone coming and saying that, hey, I know that you're spending some of your time doing video editing from previous interviews. I know that you're spending some of your time putting together the thumbnails and the bios for the videos. I know you're spending some of your time trying to categorize the different professionals that you have in this network of people that you featured, that you're trying to fundraise money in order to help sustain and grow the show. Let me take some of those things off of your plate. And then when you do that, this is something that Mark Cuban and so many other people have been saying that they love about people, is when they can come, take work off of that person's plate, and then they're like, great, here's hella money.
Yes.
Because you can know how to do that.
No, and at a certain point, as you do this, you gain certain skills and certain particularly tacit knowledge. That's the kind of knowledge you really want to learn from a mentor.
Yes.
It can't be taught in a classroom. It can't really be taught in a book. It's taught by being around someone. It's almost absorbed by osmosis, right? As you do that, the cost of replacing you actually outpaces the cost of just paying you. So one thing I tell people is like, look, I understand not everyone can work for free, but if you can, or even if you can get a job at Starbucks to subsidize your cost of living and then work for free with someone you really admire who is on the up and up, you will eventually get paid.
Definitely. Yeah. Yep. And then another thing that that's extremely important point. Also, when you illustrate this, I just want to also make it clear for people that when you're viewing this, it is slowly like that, like how much your time is worth depends on your level of expertise, like you said earlier. And you can think about this again as a topology, that it's going to take you a while to climb up to point D, but when you're at point A, you list these skills that are really important for you to slowly get to point B, C, and D in this field. Okay. And we only get 30,000 days to live. A third of them we're going to spend sleeping, so that gives us 20,000 days. So being vigilant with our time, being vigilant with our stimuli, like you said, when someone is so vigilant with their time that they're not taking meetings and this type of stuff, what are they doing? Why is it important for you to learn from them then? There's these questions that are very pressing and that I enjoy a lot. Horizontal versus vertical networking, that's the next asset for us. I like this a lot. Teach us about this.
Yeah, so when a lot of people think about building a network, right, they often think about meeting with peers, people that they went to college with, people that they go to grad school with, people that they meet who are in a very similar stage of career as them, though they may have varied interests, right? I first developed this concept when I was talking to people about the value of higher education. I would come across the argument quite often where people would be like, oh, well, it's helped me build a network. And it's like, well, okay, but who's in that network, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of your fellow students. These are people who they might be majoring in something different than you. They might be from a different place than you, and that's nice. And getting some kind of diversity and background is good to have. But when it comes to actually making that step in your career, these often are not the people who have the referral power that you need, right? So instead, what I think is better to think about for networking as building a world-class network, I don't even want to use the verb networking, but building a world-class network is thinking of a vertical network. So if we think of your network as an XY axis, right? Along the X-axis, you have your field and interests, right? You're in the center, and as people move along the X-axis, they're in different fields or different interests.
Finance, coding, neuroscience, biology.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And these are all collegiate level.
These are all your peers, right?
Peers, yeah. 20-year-olds, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, and a lot of people, I mean, even they go through their whole careers and this is what their network looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have on the y-axis the experience that they have, right? Yeah. They're all similar levels of experience. You might have one friend who is in finance and has an experienced rich uncle or something, right? Sure. But that tends to be an outlier, something that proves the rule, right? An exception that proves the rule. Yeah. Instead, I think it's important to think about a vertical network. And these aren't mutually exclusive, but if you're figuring out how you want to spend your time, a vertical network is the network that has the referral power that you can get, right? Think about it this way. You want to get a new job at a company that you really admire. You have a friend who works as, an account executive at that company, right? Relatively junior employee. He can refer you over to a recruiter at the company or to the VP of sales.
Yep.
Okay, that's better than nothing.
Totally.
But what if you had an advisor or a mentor who was an investor in the company, right? Yeah. Or who is an advisor to the CEO of the company or is the CEO of the company, right? And then they can refer you to the VP of sales. Which referral is going to carry more weight, right?
Yep.
So the question becomes when you're thinking about building a world-class network, where do I meet these people? How do I get introduced to them? How do I contact them? And it's not networking events. It's not by just hoping you bump into them. it's thinking about where do they spend their time? How do they think about their opportunity cost?
Yes.
Their time is way too valuable to be going to a networking event with cheap wine and a bunch of people looking for jobs, right? They spend what little extra time they have probably doing a handful of things. And I talk about some of these things in the book, but they might be going to industry conferences, right? Where they're learning about more, or maybe they're even speaking, right?
They're meeting other highly prominent entrepreneurs.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. I don't want to be part of any club that would have me as a member, right? It's exactly that kind of thing. Yeah, you're probably not going to meet these people at an event that's designed for people at your stage of your career. If you do, usually they're volunteering and they see that as kind of a consumption good, right? They'll spend their time on leisurely activities, right? Like what kind of activities do they enjoy doing? I tell people, look, it's like you want to meet experienced people who are significantly more advanced in their careers than you, go to like a fancy wine tasting. You're more likely to find them there, right? If you enjoy wine, go to a fancy wine
Volunteer
tasting.
at that industry conference that you're talking about.
Exactly.
That's a huge one.
Exactly. A significant number of the people in my own network who are people I consider advisors, mentors, whatever, are people I met because I was a student volunteer for nonprofits that held conferences.
That's right.
These people were donors too, right? There are donor galas. Get involved in the organizations that they donate to, right?
Yep.
So you want to think about where are they spending their time? What are their honeypots?
Yeah. This example we can give for those viewing or listening is when you're going through, let's say, like we were giving an example of, you're 20 years old, maybe you're either in college or you're in like a coding school or whatever it might be. You're doing some sort of the work amongst your peers, and you're in the learning process. Your horizontal network is all the people that you're in school, in that boot camp, etc. with. Then your vertical network is all of the people. Let's say you want to go into computer vision, or you want to go into the highest levels of machine learning. You want to really rocket yourself up in terms of coding, let's say. Well, you want to find the people that work in those highest departments at Lyft or Uber or at Airbnb or Google or Facebook or these top companies, because if you figure out how to message those people at the tops of the vertical, at the top of that topology, and you're able to provide them with value, which we're going to get to right now with these scripts, those are the people that are going to help catalyze your success. They're going to open up tons of doors for you, opportunities. So, and this is
so much of it's just footwork. So much of it's just asking for referrals, sending cold emails, and being at the places where these people will be.
That's right.
That's the 3 ways that you really connect with these people.
I love it. I love it. Being where they'll be, sending these emails, and doing this footwork to set yourself up. Ron, let's pull up the 12 email scripts done for you. So that's the next asset. So this is, and even prior to this, we have the actual. I want to pull up the blue one more back. Yeah, all good. No, it's all good. This is what you did prior to this. 12 done for you email scripts, and this is available on Zak's website.
Yeah, this is totally free.
Yep.
This was something I put together when I realized I was like, okay, if I have people coming to me asking me for career advice. I have people I went to college with coming to me asking me for career advice. And so much of this comes down to referral, whether it's you're running a company and you want to get an investment, you want to get hired at a company, you're an investor and you want good investments. I was recently going through our own books from our first fund, and a good number of our best investments were just referrals, right? You need to meet people, right? And look, I grew up in like rural Pennsylvania, coal country Pennsylvania. I don't come from having this fancy family network that I was able to just call on overnight, right? A good chunk of the people I met, whether it was doing business development at Praxis or it was while I was in school and meeting people, I met largely through sending emails. Yeah. And I did it the wrong way a lot of the time.
Likewise.
Right? I wrote really bad emails. And eventually I learned, okay, there's good ways and bad ways to write these emails. I've actually got a whole course on if you want to write your own emails, you don't want to rely on my scripts, here's the psychology of it. But for the core emails that worked really, really well for me, I was able to distill them down for about these 12. And if you can send enough of these emails and you can write them well, that can be the thing that you can get underneath your network with and open it up. That's the leverage point for a lot of people. And this one really comes down to just, can you write the email and can you send it? It doesn't come down to any privileged background. It doesn't come down to who you happen to know. How do you move that variable?
I want to show an idea of this really quick. I have here, and Ronnie, if you can pull this up, that'd be awesome. It's on NDI right now.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Yeah. Okay.
So I just have this example, and this is me emailing Yukai Chow, right? And this is me wanting to get in touch with him, original creator on some really interesting gamification frameworks and stuff like that. Yukai, love your work. I host Simulation in downtown SF, a show featuring the greatest minds of our time. There's a lot of cool synergy to explore between our networks and visions. We'd love to host you on the program in April, May. If you're interested, send me some dates and times. Alan. Like, very quick, to the point, explaining how I'm interested in their work already.
And giving him a reason to reply, which is that he'll be on your show.
He'll be on the show. There's a value add for the person that I'm messaging. These, and like you can see right below, you know, sounds interesting. My colleague right down there, you know, Bruna's gonna get in touch and set this up. So this is what I would say is one of the potentially best ways to do vertical networking is these very short 2 to 3 sentence at most emails that have the value proposition. They show sincere love for the person that you've already done research on them, and that you're trying to bring them value. And we have examples too of what of your scripts as well. This one, the first asset after the book. This is how to set up meetings, how to get meetings, and you kind of outline some of these points as well.
Yeah, and I'll say too, shorter tends to be better than longer. Yeah. What's most important is that the email is clear, compelling, and easy to reply to. So your email here was a great example. It was clear, who are you, what do you do, right? It was compelling, why should I talk to you? And it was easy to reply to, right? Yeah. If you get those 3 elements, it really doesn't matter how long it is, so long as it's clear, compelling, and easy to reply to.
I love that. It's so powerful.
So many emails are just hard to reply to.
Hard to reply to.
Yeah. Yes. If you tell somebody something like, let me know what you think, that's a really hard way to reply to an email. If you say, would you be interested? That's a yes/no question. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Or here are 3 times I'm available. Yeah. That's an easy thing to reply to. Yeah. But so many people, they leave their emails open-ended, or I'll see emails, whether they're ones that people send me or that they're ones that my students send me. They have no ask. It's okay, I know what you're trying to get at here, so I'm going to reply to you. But don't be surprised if people don't reply to you, because these are busy people. You get 7 seconds of their attention.
That's right. That's right.
At most. Make it easy for them to reply.
That's right. And get a phone call or meeting with a very busy person. This is one of your first example in the 12, and these scripts are so powerful, and the way that you explain them is very powerful. And I want to make it clear that this is when you get higher and higher up on the topology of influence and clout, people are guarding their time with more and more vigilance. So then for you to be able to make an ask via cold to do this vertical networking is so crucial. And then let's go to the script, Ronnie, the next one. Okay, and then here's where I really love what one of my main things about this that I love so much is that in the center part where you say some point of rapport. That's such an easy thing, and it's the sincere, tiny drop of sincere rapport that you've already done some research on them, that you already know, and you're very interested in what they do.
And it's so important that it actually be sincere.
Yes.
I have a couple blog posts on my site where I will take what is clearly spam. I have to be careful about saying this because anyone can email me. I will not make fun of your email if you send me an email that's not really well written. But if you're spamming me, like as big part corporate spam, I will make fun of your email publicly. So I say that because if someone wants to email me, please do email me, zslayback@gmail.com. I will not make fun of you if you send a poor email. But if you're spamming me like a corporate spammer, I will make fun of you. So somebody emailed me last year. They're like, "Hi, Zach. Big fan of your work in the crypto space, yada, 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 yada." I'm like, I've done nothing in the crypto space. That's clearly a BS compliment. So you want to make sure that the compliment you're sending somebody is actually sincere about their work, right? Yeah. One of my friends is a podcaster in Pittsburgh named Aaron Watson, and I've had him send me his best cold email request that he's gotten for someone to be on his show. And I tear this down on my website. I've got this as an example somewhere. And one of the things that the person who emailed him did was they talked about how much they loved a recent episode of his show, but it wasn't the most recent episode. It was several episodes back, which means that they actually had to go and dig through the show and find an episode.
That's right.
And if somebody came to you, Alan, and said, I love this episode with Michael Strong, which was a couple weeks ago, right? That shows you, hey, they've actually been paying attention to the show.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not that they're just looking at the most recent one, finding something that they can say, I like this, right?
Yep.
That's important.
That's right.
Be sincere with people. People can smell BS.
That's right. That's right. This is such a beautifully illustrated point about rapport, and you're going to get right to people's hearts by going through the practice of falling on your face a lot. You can't be fearful. You use this term stress-free email. Not only do you want to use shortcuts like Zak Slayback has provided, but also you want to go through the process of being fearless. If you want to reach to up the vertical network, you have to be fearless.
What's the worst that's going to happen if you email this person who you really admire? They might ignore you. That's the worst. That's really the worst.
And you had this great example of a tweet that was sent out. It's like, when you email me and you don't hear back from me, it's one of two things. Either I didn't want to reply to you, I read it and didn't reply, or it just got buried and I didn't even see it.
And most often it's the second one.
Correct. And so then reaching out again in a month or two is actually a great idea.
Yep.
And so this is the other thing. It's just a classic Wayne Gretzky quote: you miss 100% of shots in life you don't take. So to take these shots up the vertical network and to take lots and lots of shots with short, concise emails, this is one of the best things you can do.
It's one of these things that is called an asymmetric risk, right? Like the downside's essentially nothing, and the upside is huge.
That's right. That's right. Massive asymmetric risk. Now, all right, let's talk about social capital in general. I actually heard this phrase from a school teacher in San Francisco. We're both getting our haircuts, and he goes, "I'm financially poor but socially wealthy." And I'm like, interesting, so are we. And I'm like, that's a cool way of phrasing it, because social capital, social wealth is actually hugely financially wealthy too, but it's kind of you have there's like an interest that's growing on it to become wealthy. It's compounding over time, but it's going to take a while for that. So to build that when you're 20, that social capital when you're 20, in your late 20s, early 30s, is going to help you a lot with those next 30 years.
When somebody asks, how do I build a company without raising venture capital, right? First of all, I tell them, great, you should try to do that as long as you can. I joke with people, I'm the most anti-venture capital person who works in venture capital.
And teach us why.
For you as a founder, you should try to own as much as your company as long as you can until it makes sense to really put rocket fuel on the company, right? If you put rocket fuel on too early, it can blow up, right? And I think it's really important too, the more traction you can get, the more of the company you can own, the better price point you can raise at. There's all these factors that go into it. And if you want to build a company without raising a lot of money, right? One of the best ways you do that is you raise social capital in advance, right? Instead of raising financial capital, you raise social capital.
Interesting.
You get people who are more than happy to do favors for you, right? You get people who, they like you, they trust you, you've done something for them, not in this transactional way of like, you owe me now, but in the sense of, hey, Alan's somebody that I really like, I really trust, I'm gonna do an introduction for you to this person who has tons of gatekeepers that's impossible to get to, right? Or, hey, I have a friend who, they have all this extra equipment you could use. I bet I can get it for you for like a really huge discount, right? That is social capital. Every time You follow through on your word. Every time you go above and beyond, you do these supererogatory acts. You make a deposit in this bank account.
Yep. And there's a very, I think, important way you started listing these options: intro people to who should know each other, help with an extra set of hands, pick up value that's being left on the floor. At the same time, I want to make it really clear that there's other shortcuts that are really cool to leverage. One of them, I think, is to not use social media to the extent that a vast majority of people are using it. As in, I would recommend deleting social apps from your phone. So keeping Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all off, Snapchat, off your phone.
One of my friends is a Twitter celebrity, I guess, named Ed Lattimore. Ed's a great follow if you're on Twitter. He's just at Ed Lattimore. But he's got a tweet that I actually have in the book that I think is put very, very well. He says, Twitter is a drug and I am the dealer. I am not the user. You want to view if you're going to be on social media, view it that way. These are massive companies that employ dozens, if not hundreds, of PhDs who are paid very, very well purely to destroy your attention, purely to take time from you. You will not beat them. And if you're going to use social media, use it in a very clear way that builds your brand, that helps you create the value and signal the value that you can create for your career.
That's right. Yeah, it's literally psychometric profiles that are super well built out, quantum computing strength that's pointed at your attention.
You're not going to win.
You're not going to win unless you come in with a really strong mentality of building my brand, my personal brand, and that's one of the ways. Another one of the ways I think to do these shortcuts is to enable oneself the creative space that they need to breathe, to really sink into their essence. Because when we're so on our devices all the time, thinking that we're doing productive things, but when we turn them off and we sit down or lay down and just be, sometimes the creative thoughts, and this is famous, I mean, Einstein, Tesla, so many people were quoted talking about the importance of just being and letting creative thoughts arise.
Cal Newport has a lot of really good work on this. He has a recent book called Digital Minimalism that I suggest everyone pick up if they're interested in all what you're saying. He suggests take a 30-day fast from social media and then figure out which elements you need to work back in, right?
Yeah.
So like for me, for example, I am on Facebook because I am all over the country all the time. The teams that I work with are distributed, so it's good to be on it for me to be able to Facebook message people, but I've deleted my entire news feed. Right.
Yeah. Newsfeed eradicator. Yeah.
No, I've gone above that, and I've unfollowed literally everyone I am friends with. I found a script that allowed me to do that. So on any device I'm on, the newsfeed is eradicated.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So Cal Newport's book Digital Minimalism is good with that, and then Deep Work is a good theoretical book on what you're talking about right here. That ability to make these creative connections. You need the ability to focus. So even in the Execute chapter, I mentioned Paul Graham's got this great essay, Maker Schedule versus Manager Schedule.
That's right.
And if you are a maker of any kind, you're a writer, you're a speaker, you're a coder, whatever you are, you need to have large chunks of uninterrupted time to really get into the flow of things. You can't allow social media, you can't allow meetings, you can't allow phone calls to interrupt you.
That's right. Phone on silent, phone powered off, all notifications off is another really powerful one. Don't get reeled in by the notifications. Focus, long periods of focus. Okay, Zach, I want to ask you a couple questions on the way out. One of the questions that I want to ask you is, going into the exponential technology age, what are, if not the best, most important skill for a young child to learn?
The ability to talk with other people. I think that we're still quite a while off from really being able to create technology that passes a Turing test for face-to-face communication, right? Humans are weird, humans are hard. If you are capable of talking to other people too, it's what I call a high leverage skill.
Yes.
Cold email is another one of these things, right? Where it opens up other doors for you to learn what are like lower leverage skills that are harder, more tactical skills, right? So you need to make a career transition when you're 25 into a totally new career, or when you're 55, your ability to talk to other people, to build relationships with them, to put yourself slightly outside of your comfort zone is going to open up those doors for you to actually pursue those specific skills.
And sales is one of the best ways to teach this. Building emotional intelligence, to know how to, and meditation, to like deeply look at someone else's eyes and think about their entire life journey, how they got there, asking questions. These things about EQ just drive rapport and relationships to whole new levels.
I suggest that everybody get some sales job at some point in their career.
Yeah. I love it. That's a great answer. All right, and the simulation questions we like to ask on the way out. Zach, are we alone in the cosmos?
I honestly don't know. I like to think that if we are, that we are at just the very, very beginning of an epic story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it'd be such a boring story if we are alone and this is what it looks like, right? I like the idea of a human civilization that spans the cosmos.
Yeah. The beginning of the epic story. I love it. And then next question is, are we in a simulation?
This is like, so I was a philosophy major, and I always found the free will debates in metaphysics to be rather boring, personally, because it doesn't matter one way or another if we are, because I'm going to act the same way regardless. I'm going to live as if we're not in a simulation, right? I'm going to act as if I do have free will. Even if I don't actually have free will, I want to live in a world where I believe everyone has free will. Then people can take responsibility for their actions. They can take responsibility for their lives. A world where we don't have free will, or a world where we live in a simulation where free will is limited, is a world where it's easier for people to get by with their excuses, and that's not a world I want to live in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the last question we like to ask on our show is, what is the most beautiful thing in the world?
There have only been a few experiences in my life where I've been able to identify with the word sublime, like almost tear-inducing beauty.
Yeah.
One of the ones that has popped up a couple times for me, and I think sublimity doesn't have to be visual, it can be auditory as well. There's something about, maybe this is because I was raised by an airline pilot, I don't know. There's something about coming through the early morning cloud cover and seeing the sun rising in the distance, like 7 a.m. out of a rainy city, and you get through the rain, you get through the thunder clouds, you get through the storm, and you get above that 10,000-foot cloud cover, and you can see the sun on the horizon. Mm-hmm. That's one of those moments where I'm like, wow, I am sitting in a chair, traveling hundreds of miles per hour, going to the other side of the country, in a situation that would normally have killed my ancestors from like dysentery, if not dysentery, then like being murdered by other people. This is pretty great.
Yeah.
The picture itself is beautiful, yes, but like the whole context of, I don't know, I really like human ingenuity.
Yeah.
And as awful as airports are, as awful as modern airlines are, there's something about aviation that just still gets it for me.
Yeah.
It's a hard question. That was a good question.
Well answered. This has been such a solid show, super enlightening.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a ton of fun.
Thanks for coming on, Zach.
Thanks, Alan.
Huge pleasure. And when will we be able to have How to Get Ahead in our hands?
If everything goes to plan right now, it should be out the end of the first week of June. You can pre-order it on Amazon.
Great.
Also, if you hop on my email list, I am going to be offering some pre-order bonuses. Like I said, I've got some courses that I've built out.
Sweet.
So access to those, so things like that.
Beautiful. And that's ZakSlayback.com. That link is in the bio, everyone. Also, follow Zak on Twitter. That link is in the bio. Get ready for how to get ahead. Go and share more of these stories about horizontal versus vertical networking, these email scripts, how to build up your network, build up this world-class network, and go and achieve your actualization. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Share these thoughts with your communities, families, coworkers. And huge shout out to Ron Vargas. Thank you so much for producing and directing. We love you very much. And go and build the future, everyone. Support the artists and entrepreneurs that you believe in. Simulations links are below. We need your help in growing. And manifest your dreams, everyone. Life is short. Get it done. We love you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.